Hey, world builders, welcome back to Shoutout Saturday, where I read your lore. If you want to hear your own writing read aloud here, come submit some for the daily prompt in the Discord and tag it for Shoutout Saturday. Now let's read some lore. For Shoutout Saturday, day 153, the prompt was describe a painting of a great historical moment and how accurate or inaccurate the painting is in relation to the events that took place. This came from Sun Panda in the Discord. For day 153, Predwin the Great wrote The End of Hensman. While art itself is quite uncommon in the world of Rust and Blood, there are some pieces that have earned a great deal of fame. One such piece is The End of Hensman. This acrylic canvas painting measures 10 feet wide and 15 feet tall. Its frame is made of solid gold, weighing around 80 pounds. The art piece prominently features Hensman kneeling before an abstract entity, likely to be interpreted as the Bleak Shore. This entity is represented as a mass of floating barbed wire and animal carcasses that, interestingly, despite the painting's static nature, always seem to move, if only just a little. Hensman sits kneeling before the entity in front of him, while behind him a group of humanoid silhouettes wield torches and rifles. The event described by the painting is not all too different from what actually happened the day Hensman met his end. The Bleak Shore's avatar was largely consumed by celestial corruption by the time Hensman pleaded for his life, so it could be easy to interpret it as an eldritch form. Hensman, however, never had a chance to kneel before the Bleak Shore, as he was immediately crucified on a pillar of barbed wire and forced to watch the flames of his burning city draw closer. Great Lovecraftian inspiration stuff here. Predwin, I like it. Nugget wrote Emrys Aurelius in the Renaissance. During the Renaissance, Emrys, along with many others, became fascinated by the arts. He painted many scenes of the gods and lost myths associated with them. Many were biased, as Emrys is ultimately a narcissist who slandered the gods' names during the war in the first place, but given mortals' perception of the gods, his first person experience still makes his works a lot more accurate than most. But perhaps the most baffling was the paintings he made of Victor during this time. Victor isn't around a lot of the time, and Emrys often misses looking at his face. It made things very interesting a few centuries later when historians found an authentic Renaissance painting depicting a man very clearly dressed to fit in with the 1870s. More interesting still when people began to recognize the painting in question as the same person in vintage photographs from the Victorian era around the same time. I forgot to mention this was an entry in Time Traveler and the Immortal. If you hadn't gathered that, though, then you probably weren't paying attention because the time travel element seems to be quite clearly represented. Well done, Nugget. We did skip day 154. There were no Shoutout Saturday submissions, but for day 155 we had several, and the prompt was, what is your world's moon or moons like? This was from Kit in the Discord. Aris writes, Moons of Galavan 15 Dancing Twins. Formerly called Galavan 15A and Galavan 15B, the dancing twins of Nojum and Kovis orbit on opposing sides from one another. Both moons are massive in size, most likely causing the odd weather anomaly on Galavan 15. Nojum, named after the god of light No-Sinks, is a bright yellow-white moon that can normally only be seen in the night sky. Its twin is Kovas, named after the god of darkness Yonox, a near black moon that absorbs most light shown into it while creating a double shadow on the surface of the planet below where it shines. Before the terraforming of Galavan 15, the two moons had moved in a loop perfectly, never moving too far from one another at any given point in time. But when Null attacked the gods that these moons represent, Yonox's and No-Sinks' holds on the moons faltered, causing them to shatter from the core outward. Shards from these moons rained down on the surface of the planet below. The shards of these moons formed large pillars of material, with the most of Nojum's material being on the western half of the planet, and the most of Kovas being on the eastern half. It was said the material from these moons were holy, which is why the planet was colonized to begin with. Now, in the present, temples and shrines made from the shards of these moons can be found all over the surface of Galavan 15, with massive cathedrals carved into the ragged, shattered cliffs of Nojum and Kovas respectively. After the two gods awoke again, these temples were the main source of their power for the longest of times, and was most likely the one thing keeping them alive while they rebuilt themselves. Though the forgotten shaded temples hidden below the casino planet's surface have been rehoused by different deities entirely, but that's a different story for another time. Great stuff. I feel like I'm going to need a long time to figure out Aris's world just because it is, I think, a lot more vast than the rest of ours. Very high scale cosmic stuff, if I remembering correctly. Lots of different planets, lots of different systems, and a lot of like time travel oriented things as well. Very interesting. I'm still currently lost, but that is okay. I think that would be the point if I were only reading it this way anyway. Probably the Great writes, Heavy hangs the air. The skies of turmoil have an air of dread in them, a dread that draws one's eyes to two separate blots of rock hanging high in the great blue sky. The moons of turmoil, Hazak and Pales. This sense of dread one feels while staring at the sky is attributed to a form of negative faith associated with the moons, as the history of these hunks of Earth is steeped in calamity. See Build Together Day 134. Hazak is the smaller of the two. While there are no precise measurements, it's roughly a 20th of the size of Turmoil. Hazak is covered in a deep red soil, broken up with countless strange craters and rivers that have long since dried out. Using a spyglass, one can find the corpses of massive beasts rotting infinitely across the northern plateaus of Hazak, and the signs of forests once being present on the moon. Looking at Hazak for too long causes a sense of bloodlust. The longer one stares at the red moon, the more intense this murderous craving grows, until it cannot be contained any longer. If affected, the Caldathan government recommends barricading oneself away from others for 48 hours, or until your veins no longer feel evil. Pele's is the larger of the two, being around an 18th of the size of Turmoil, or maybe it's just closer. Pele's is covered in solid gold from pole to pole. The corpse of an ancient civilization litters its surface, and weapons larger than cities lay inoperative, facing towards the surface of Turmoil. Looking at Pele's for an extended period of time greatly inflates one's ego. This mental change can get so extreme that all compassion or love the affected person might have had for others completely vanishes. The only cure for this effect is rapid imprisonment and torture until repentance is achieved, at least according to Remexian officials. With Caldatham itself at siege, the air has grown very heavy this day. Perhaps a third eye will look down on Turmoil. And you imagine one evil moon is bad, but two evil moons is even worse. But I really like this. Also very Eldritch. Sunny the Soap Eater writes Sunny Soul's Journal of the New World. There are several entries in here, and we will start with the third entry. I have only been in this world for a day, and yet the mysteries keep growing in number. I'm stranded in a location, an island of ice. I don't know what the locals would refer to this locale as, neither what country, if any, rules over it. The sun has been stationary in the sky for roughly 20 hours without signs of setting, and alongside this I've made a strange discovery. The horizon, it does not seem to exist. Instead, there is a constant layer of fog that appears if I manage to peer too far. Either that or things grow so distant that natural perception is impossible. I haven't been able to prove the existence of a planet that this world is situated upon, is the point that I'm making, which is awfully abnormal to me. The thing is, though, that's not what I'm writing this journal entry for. I mentioned before that the sun appears stationary. It does not seem to rotate at all, which only seems to muddle the existence of a planet more than before. I had assumed that, because of this, night would exist through an alternative means. Or maybe it just didn't, and the sun existed like some sort of eternal beacon across the lands. Once again, how this would work on a planet befuddles me. It points towards this world not being on a planet, or one half of the planet constantly being dark, neither of which makes sense, since a planet should hold a gravitational pull. Therefore it would rotate, unless someone is interfering with said rotation. But then what is? None of the locals seem to know or even understand my question about it. I know this isn't what I'm writing about here, but it is still something I need to figure out. It confuses me beyond compare. The thing is, though, I was just proven wrong. Incredibly wrong. There's no moon or anything here, but that means, yes, there's no light at all at night. I'm only writing this in thanks to a campfire I'd built earlier in the day, otherwise I would be out of luck. That's not to mention just how day turned to night either. It was a serpent in shape, a serpent which came from the endless horizon. I don't know from where, and it reminded me of a common world rainbow in that sense. But everything else about it, horrifying. It was large enough to make the sun, seem like some sort of largish boulder. And yes, that might sound impressive, but that's until you realize just how large this thing was in comparison to the bloody sun. Thing is, it ate it. The serpent, it ate the sun. That's how night fell. There is no sun. It ate the sun. How did it? I don't understand, frankly enough. It's a predator so large that it can feast on the literal sun. How did such a thing come to be? I'll investigate further at another date. For now, I have to survive the night. Sunny Sewell's Journal of the New World, 4th entry. The sun has returned, but the serpent is nowhere to be seen. The night lasted for roughly 15 hours, maybe a little longer. I must imagine that the day to night cycle is rather inconsistent if it is dependent on this serpent, whatever it is. I went to the local village in any case, asked around. They all tilted their heads, told me that this happens every night, as I suspected. I suppose the confusion is understandable. If this happens every night, then surely everybody knows about it. Someone who doesn't would be an outcast. The strange part to me, however, was the fact that nobody exactly knew about it. I was told about certain myths and religious tales, but nobody really knew much. I would need to talk to a more knowledgeable individual for such details, I suppose. Fair enough, but that means I should be getting off this island. I have an idea as to where to head next. There's a nearby continent that houses a pretty famous country called the Axtonian Empire. It piqued my interest for a few reasons, primary one being that I had heard the name before. Axton. It's the last name of a guy I knew rather well. Scary person, though he meant well. My sister and his husband, they were pupils of his. Mr. September had a great deal of history with the fella too, but they're on good terms nowadays. Thing is, you see, I inquired about his name, about Rave. The people of the village acted shocked, like I had said something I shouldn't have. The elder came up to me, invited me to his house. We spoke a little. I found out that Rave was a legendary king from that very empire. Only solidified my suspicion more so, and the guy sounded awfully cryptic in nature. Nobody really knew what he was up to, only that he signed this deal with some guy called the Aurora King or Frost King from the neighboring Divine Kingdom. Then he helped out the frost demons that lived on this isle, and yeah, demons, you heard that right. Demons exist here apparently, but they don't seem all that bad. Whatever, I got interesting news, and the Elder even gave me a small ship to use, so now I'm heading for Axtonia. Another update once I'm there, maybe. Sunny Sewell's Journal of the New World, 5th entry. Really need a better name for this journal. Not bothered with it right now, though, so it can wait. Whatever the case, I spent the day sailing. Documented some fish I found along the way, the Arctic type. Climate is cold around these parts. It's obvious for the wildlife to be affected. I got to land in 3 hours. Had spent another few chatting to the elder and setting up ship beforehand, so we're probably on hour 8 or 10. I met some surprising folk, was able to analyze them. Weird bit, one of them had my same name. Well, not exactly, but it was close enough. She went by the normal name as an alias, too. Succubus girl, apparently a crisis rank. Strongest person I've met so far, alongside this other fella. Apparently a general of the military, so I decided to ask the two a few questions. Seems that I came off the wrong way, though, so they left without helping me. It was a success on my end, though. I found out a few good things from the conversation. The girl was easy enough to manipulate, seeing as my theory was right. She's identical to me, or well, another version of me. Experiences likely differ, but it makes intel gathering a whole lot easier. I didn't give up much about myself. Went to the local library after. Read up on the Empire's history. Rave was documented in the books alongside this great war. Seemed to be a world war sort of deal, except it was a guy dubbed as the Demon King who was the main enemy of it all. I did find something abnormal, though. Apparently, the moon does exist? Well, not literally, but there's a person out there that embodies it, some sort of supposed divine creature that went across the lands, spreading the light of the moon in absence of the real thing. This seems to be this world's version of a moon, and apparently his descendant is here in Extonia. I've got questions for them, whoever they are. I'm thinking of stopping by a fish and chip shop. I hear there's a good one around, and I got some money from the elder, too. Hopefully I make it before night falls. Ooh, this is another very long one, maybe the longest yet. I really haven't been keeping a tally or record. Maybe I should start doing that. But this is some really interesting stuff, very fun. Nugget writes The Shattered Moon, an entry in Time Traveler and the Immortal. The moon in Time Traveler and the Immortal is shattered within the night sky. No one knows how or when it happened, but many have theories. Most assume it happened during the Divine War, which makes sense as most of the world was similarly torn apart, and Emrys even claims it was he who shattered the moon, but this isn't actually the case. The moon was one of the first gifts to humanity at the birth of the universe. Stella gave humanity the sun, Time gave the moon. Chaos grew jealous as he knew only how to destroy, but still wanted to give humanity something of his own, eventually giving them an apple tree that gave them the ability to think for themselves. Stella was upset about Chaos corrupting her otherwise perfect humans and convinced them to try and kill Time, knowing that Time held power over Chaos. To everyone's surprise, Time didn't do anything. He just stood there and let Chaos fatally wound him, and in doing so the moon, as an extension of its creator, shattered. This is some cool stuff. I see your inspiration from our own mythology, a very classic Christian mythology, which I think is super interesting. I like the way that you've incorporated this with your own stuff. Like it. Very cool. Nice job. On day 156, the prompt was, what is a famous or common conspiracy theory in your world? Is it correct? MycoMan writes the beginning, the ending, everything. I often find humor in my day-to-day travels to the best of my ability. Today was a day where the humors of life brought out my natural curiosity. I was in Chrysalis today and overheard a conversation between a human and Goliath, an argument. Kresvi, Skroniman, you are no better than me simply for who you are. Kresvi is a way in Goliath dialect to tell someone that they're incorrect and unintelligent. Fun fact, the letter C doesn't exist in Goliath culture. The human retorted back, it isn't my fault we were the first made race giantkin. Keep your trap shut. I didn't hear much of the conversation, just that snippet. The Goliath quickly handled the human male after that statement. It made me wonder, though, who did come first? I decided to find out through the firstborn, which is a title used to describe the three-head gods of Hrot-Tavi, Nemoe, and Ernor. Off I go. I haven't spoken to the three much. Most people don't really see Ernor anymore, not after his incident with Nemoe and Hrot-Tavi anyway. I suppose I should briefly discuss it here, since I haven't yet made an entry on it. Aranor is a special god. They call him the World Crafter, or Realm Builder. Usually, whenever any god makes their realm, Aranor has a part in its creation or construction. He also seems to have an issue with perfectionism based on this myth. Apparently, he sees his work as less than great, and at one point he asked Nemoe to help him. Nemoe flat out refused, not seeing any issues with him. He didn't give him any support or actively tried to help him get better. Aranor took it at face value. From then on, he believed he didn't deserve the help he was asking for. Now, people haven't heard or seen him for many cycles. I wonder if he's doing okay. New realms pop up, which I assume he helps make, but that doesn't mean he's doing better. With how efficiently and quickly they're being made, well, I'm afraid he's getting worse. I digress, though. Back to the task at hand. I've never visited Nemoe's realm before. According to part of god law, each god is meant to, in some way or another, inhabit their realm. Kaz in Chrysalis lives in a monastery of the Elskemir monks, hiding as one of the Firbolg members. Hemek in Kragus lives at the center of the fourth layer. Nemoe, since I haven't been to his realm before, I don't even know where he'll be at. I hope my journey to find him is short. Hopefully I did an okay job with the Goliath. I actually don't remember if the Goliaths had a Russian origin, but it just felt right, so we went with a little bit of a Slavic accent. I tried my best. Let me know what you think. Nugget writes, Magic isn't real, an entry in The Time Traveler and the Immortal. The gods are something that is just known to exist. They may be disliked, and they may be dead, but the fact that they exist is not up for debate. Unless you're Victor, anyway. While his family is famous for being witch finders, Victor adamantly denies the existence of the gods and magic. He values a scientific outlook on life, and magic simply isn't scientific. Of course, he's wrong, and deep down he knows this. Victor has unexplained magic in a family of witch finders. His obsession with science was something of a coping mechanism. If magic doesn't exist, then how could he have it? And if he doesn't have it, then he can't be persecuted. This is the final build together prompt I will read. I'm going to be gone the next few days, and so I'm not going to unfortunately be able to get to the rest of the prompts that come out the day that I am reading this, but that is okay. I will get back to those when I am here in person next week on Friday. So finally, we have Predwin the Great for day 156. Kamar, first and last chance. The hordes of orcs are endless. The legions of Murakane do not die, and the tide of Korgans does not falter. Kamar is lucky enough to have as few entry points as it does. Orcs die in the thousands every day. Murakanians are brought to gas chambers where their corpses are burnt forever, and daemons are banished again and again. Kamar holds its own against an infinite enemy, a battle of attrition that has no clear end in sight, though both sides have dealt serious blows to one another. Now, imagine that instead of Kamar, the forces of death chose another target for their first war. The Kartoff are scattered, and cannot fight a war of attrition. Havenhold is but a single city with only so many guns. Oricadia, though mighty as it is small. The adamantine court, greatest of automations, would crumble as the tide of death wrought horror over its land. Ormdal would die afraid, the miasma returning for its final toll, the ram sights like dominoes, that as they fall would break the morale of every man and woman under the rule of the seven saints. Many scholars believe the above information to be absolutely true. They believe that if mortal kind is to find success in this conflict, then Kamar must not fall. They believe that the forces of death know the above information as well, and that Kamar was chosen purely because attacking another country would have given them far too much time to prepare themselves. This conspiracy, as well informed as it is only that, a conspiracy. A conspiracy. There is no need to think such terrifying thoughts. Pace thyself, mortal. Very cool stuff, Predwin. Lots of Eldritch horror and Lovecraftian elements coming through in your writing lately, which I dig. I'm a big fan. I love cosmic horror, cosmic entities, cosmic ideas like this. Super cool. Thanks to everyone so much who submitted Shoutout Saturday build together prompt submissions. I enjoy reading them as always. We have a pretty awesome community. If you want to see your own stuff here, then come to the Discord and post to the forum and add the tag for Shoutout Saturday, and it will be read here. As always, thanks for watching and have a wonderful Saturday.